Hey, welcome back to the Unbelievable Podcast. I am BJ Reidell, back here with my guy, Drew Mahowald. And today, well, we're talking about yet another Minnesota Vikings loss, another gut punch, if you will. Ultimately, this game came down to one final play, which, of course, the Vikings defense conceded. DK Metcalf found his way into the end zone, and the Seahawks walked off on the Vikings by a score of 27-26. Now, as of this recording, you guys have already had a couple days to digest this loss. Calm your anger, if you will. So what we're going to do today is we're going to try to reinvigorate that anger. No, I'm just kidding. We're going
A little bit. I mean,
I have some complaints, and we'll discuss all of that throughout the show today, and then later on in the week. We will preview the Vikings' upcoming matchup. So for today, we're focusing on that matchup this past Sunday night, which really, for the most part, like there are a lot of bright spots in this game, but it ultimately, if you flip the scoreboard, if the Vikings had won 27-26, we're singing a much different tune, right? Uh, but because of the way this ultimately ended, it's another tough loss, and I know that everyone in Minnesota is just thinking, why is it always us? Well, this happens all the time, and it feels like it's only Vikings fans. Well, it is Falcons fans too, I guess, but it does feel like it's only Vikings fans for the most part. It just sucks, right?
Yeah. I guess you could throw the Chargers in there too after seeing what happened to them Monday night. But this was, I feel weirdly, this is as good as I felt about a Vikings loss in a while. Like it's one of those where go to Seattle, undefeated team, against perhaps the best quarterback in football right now, and first half completely dominated the game.
Right.
Dominated time of possession, which had been a major struggle the first 2 weeks of the season. Third down defense has been superb this season, or at least the last few weeks here. And the running game was also awesome. Even Dalvin going out and Madison came in there and was supremely efficient. Mike Boone had a couple nice carries. There's a lot of good things about this game, and I think it really just comes down to that early stretch in the third quarter is when things really flipped. Does. And whether you think it was kind of like if that was sparked by Dalvin being hurt or not, I don't know, but it was basically the Kirk interception and the Kirk strip sack were kind of compounded mistakes there that essentially handed Seattle like 14 points in a row there, and coming back from that just proved to be too much.
Yeah, and that's the truth of it, right? I mean, you mentioned it. The first half was picture perfect. 13-0 going into halftime. If you told me the Vikings could have a 2-score lead, nearly a 2-touchdown lead on the Seattle Seahawks playing on their field, I'd be very satisfied. And really, the performance was satisfying as well. It wasn't the most efficient thing you'll ever see, but they had I think they had 3 drives of 10 plays or more for the first time since like 2004, right? And they were chewing up clock like crazy, like you said. They weren't just running up and down the field with sprinter speed, but they were slowly kind of getting there, and they kept putting points on the board consistently. Vikings scored 7 in the first and then 6 in the second. And then again, 6 in the third and 7 in the fourth. Granted, that proves not be enough. But my point being here is that first half, like, if there is a way to beat Russell Wilson, if there's a way to manage his ability to be so efficient all the time in so many pieces of his role, it's just to keep him off the field. That's what you say about every best player, right? If you're going to beat a team that has a stud player, keep him off the field. And the Vikings did just that to it, like an unbelievable degree in the first half. It was outstanding, front to back. I have no complaints about the first half.
Like, I am like very pleasantly surprised in the Vikings offense this year as a whole. It's like, outside of that Colts game, this offense has been awesome. The running game is awesome. Dalvin's been great, and then Madison, of course, was great against Seattle. Kirk has been like really good. I don't know. It's just that his bad plays are like supremely, awfully, terribly, and untimely bad. That it ruins everything else. Like that's exactly what it is.
True, like, but that should ruin it.
Yeah,
that's part of the puzzle, though.
I know, but like 95% of his plays and his performance is awesome. It's just that 5%, like, is so bad, and it takes it totally changes the rest of the game for the offense. But it's weird. It's how like in terms of play numbers, like he has 3 or 4 bad plays a game, which on the large scope of things, comparing to most quarterbacks, that's a good thing to have that few amount of bad plays, but
Right.
they're so bad that it almost balances things out. And it's tough to watch that way because you think the Seattle game, those 2 turnovers in his own territory, awful, right? Go back to the Tennessee game, trying that game-winning drive there, a couple really bad plays, trying to mount a comeback there, same thing. Of course, the Green Bay game, you had the safety and then the interception to Jair Alexander. It's those type of plays, like his bad plays are so bad each game that it ultimately is playing a humongous factor into the win-loss column. Whereas compared to most quarterbacks, a bad play is just like missing an open throw on 3rd and 8 to set up a punt. It's just
It's
different there.
Yeah, I agree with you, and it's also because he compounds his bad plays with more bad plays, right? Like if he has 3 of them, they all come in a row, right? And it puts the Vikings in a huge hole. It demoralizes the team. It demoralizes us, the fan base. Not that that matters with us sitting on our couches, but when fans are in the seats, right? I mean, everyone's sitting down when if Kirk Cousins throws an interception and fumble in back-to-back drives, right? Like that sucks. But here's the thing, though. Kirk Cousins' play in the third quarter specifically was not like it was baffling, right? This fumble sack especially, like you got to hang on to those. He's been doing that for years. It's very annoying, but it wasn't his fault that the Vikings lost this game, right?
No, no,
There's an equitable distribution of blame this time. The last time I freaked out about Kirk Cousins, it was on Kirk Cousins. This time it was like Kirk Cousins played really well. Kirk Cousins played really, really bad. Kurt came out, if you will, and then he had the opportunity to bring it back, right? Like to reel
and he
back the
did.
mistakes that he made, and he did it, right? He went down. The Vikings scored after he blew it. The lead was completely blown. All of us were thinking, here we go again. Kirk marched down the field. The Vikings scored. Then it becomes about the defense, right? So yes, the third quarter was a huge, huge factor in ultimately in the scoreboard, right? But the Vikings had a chance to come back from that, and for that reason, Kirk gets a piece of the blame like everyone else does in every other game. But to me, this really comes down to that one play on that final drive with the rain pouring down, 94 yards to go. It's 4th and 10, and you beat Dantzler down the left sideline by what, like 45 yards in the air? Okay, couple things. We know DK Metcalf is a good football player. We know that he has sprinter speed. We know that he is getting better every single week, and we know that Russell Wilson is as good as they get at throwing the deep ball, right? All things considered, it's not that that pass was completed. It was the way that it was completed. You can't lose the football in the air when the game is on the line, when all you need to do is knock it to the turf. All the Vikings needed was that ball to hit the turf. That's it. So for me, if you're going to pick a GOAT, and I don't want to pick a GOAT in this game because there is a blame that you can assign all over the place, that includes Kubiak, Zimmer, etc. But if there is one guy, it's Cameron Dantzler because he blew that one play that if he stops that ball from landing in DK Metcalf's hands, or if he just if he does anything else basically, but lose the ball in the rain, I don't even know. The Vikings are going home winners, and that is what's the toughest pill for me to swallow is that it's pouring rain and you allow them to go 94 yards in under 3 minutes, and they did it without a problem. That's a problem for me.
Yeah. No, I get that, and part of me, so you look back on it, it's in a way the defense played well on that series. Now, that sounds weird for me to say, but Russell Wilson was 4 for 12 on that drive, passing the ball, and he didn't spike it either. So like he was legitimately throwing incomplete passes that whole drive. It's just that the ones he hit were big ones or big plays. You got the long one to Metcalf. I think there was a longer one to Lockett over the middle that was 20 some yards. So that was the deal there. That's the problem with Wilson is that he doesn't on that drive he wasn't throwing short. He was going for the big play every time, which is tiring for a defense, which is difficult to stop, and because essentially you have to make Wilson legitimately throw the ball incomplete 4 times. He's not spiking it. He's not checking it down for 2 yards. It's 4 incomplete passes that are necessary there, and that's tough to do. And the Vikings almost had that 2 or 3 times, and the touchdown pass at the end needed a perfect throw from Wilson. Anthony Harris was right on top of Metcalf there on the crosser, and it still worked. So you got to give credit to Wilson there. I think the next part we need to discuss is sort of the game management part that's been all over, the Twitter and what have you. whether it's kicking extra points, whether it's, going for the field goal at the end there on that 4th and short. So I kind of want to get your perspective on that. My big thought is going for 2 when they scored to make it 25-21. So Thielen had his second touchdown of the game. Kirk had just completed that 97-yard drive in the 4th to take the lead. And they went for the 1-point kick to get 26-21. I would have liked them to go for 2 in that instance, because I feel like either way, you force Seattle to score a touchdown.
Yeah.
And a touchdown takes the lead either way. If it gets 27-21, they still need to make an extra point in the rain, which is not, it's that the odds they miss are still slim, but it's still something extra that they have to work for. And then B, if it's 27-21, and you get the ball back, you have the field goal to make it a 2-possession game, which is where the Vikings could have put this game away.
Okay, so the 2-point conversion versus extra point situation, I don't have a very strong opinion on that, right? I think the Vikings did a pretty good job. The theory that I always follow with the extra point versus 2-point conversion is you try to make the 2-point conversion attempt your final score, right? So I would have kicked the extra points over and over, and then when you get to the final chance, I probably would have gone for 2 after the Thielen touchdown that you're mentioning. But I don't have a huge issue with the choice to go for the extra point instead. Now, the bigger debate to me is really when it came down to it, when the Vikings had 4th and 2, and they could have kicked the field goal to put it at what it would have been an 8-point game, and the Vikings chose to go for it on 4th down. That to me is the hotter debate, just because it really, like, everything was in front of the Vikings at that point in time, right? And it becomes a complete, it becomes a judgment call. It becomes an analytics call. There's people like that. There's so many different viewpoints on how you can take it, right? A lot of people would say, take the 3 points, give the ball back to Wilson, hope he doesn't go down and get 2 as well, right? But you're playing Russell Wilson. So I understand the fear in doing that, right? He could do that easily. But then I guess you are playing for overtime, so you have to factor that as well. Now, if you go for 2, if you get it there on 4th down, the game is straight up over, period. You're going to either run out the clock or you're going to score a touchdown again, and it's going to be over. So if the Vikings had gotten it there, which, by the way, not Madison, it was the blocking in that play that sucked. If Madison gets the first down there, no one has a problem with that play call. And I still don't have a problem with the play call. I've got a problem with the execution. And really, I don't even have an issue with them choosing to run the ball instead of passing it, because I think I trust Madison in that situation more than I would Cousins, to be honest with you. So,
Madison was chewing them up the whole second half, and they.
So I don't have a problem with any of it.
The way the play was schemed up, it was O'Neal and Ham were sort of the lead blockers on the play, right? If you look at it, and both of those guys kind of got stonewalled, a little bit more than they should or they would. Yeah, in most cases, that's kind of why it didn't work to me. And some can say, if you look at those still shots, well, you could have gone to the right. There was a big hole there. The thing is, if you look at it, like the linebacker that hit Ham, I don't remember his name from Seattle, but had the outside shoulder there on Ham and bouncing outside. Maybe Dalvin Cook could have done it and picked up that first down. It would have been a lot tougher for Madison to do so. And so I think trying to split the hole there between O'Neal and Ham was the right call. And Ham was just stonewalled there and he ran into him. That's just what happened. But
so
the call was the right call to go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're on the same page that it's the right call. Okay, cool. So since we're cool with the fact that the call happened, you've got the execution issue, right? Which is what you're talking about. Now, the execution issue sucks, right? I mean, ultimately, like, we can both sit back here and, our chairs and be like, oh, I wish Brian O'Neal had blocked better. I wish CJ Ham had, done a better job, right? Whatever. I'm not going to dwell on that. Now, the next issue that I have is you make that call, right? You make that decision. It's twofold. One, you get a chance to go home and just walk out and you win if you get the first down. The second part of that decision is that they're starting at their own 6-yard line as a result of stopping you, if that happens. This is the problem that I have in this entire game. It's not the call, because the call itself was a great one. If the Vikings execute there, or if they hold them to not scoring a touchdown over the course of 94 yards in the pouring rain, then the Vikings also win. So the decision there is as good as you can get. Mike Zimmer has been screwed on making these types of decisions his entire career. I'm not gonna yell. I'm not gonna give him flack for this one because 94. I can't express this to you guys enough. That's 9 first downs, 10 first downs technically. It's pouring rain, so like yes, Wilson's one of the best throwers of the football, but it's raining really hard. It's more difficult than ever for their receivers to keep their footing, and they're trying to make crisp breaks out of their routes. It's harder than ever to throw that football. It's easier than ever to defend because everything is like traveling slower or slipperier or just simply more difficult for the off to block you. And you let them go all the way with 2 fourth downs. That's not about any decision. Like, we don't need to talk about the fact the Vikings, quote, rolled the dice. We need to talk about the fact the Vikings blew it when they took a perfect gamble. If you gave me those odds in Vegas, every day I'm taking those odds. Every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And the Vikings couldn't find a way to get it done. And part of that is youth. Part of that is that they targeted, a cornerback with very little experience. But ultimately, they beat our guys, too. Like you said, they beat Anthony Harris despite having coverage draped all over DK Metcalf. I'm not even mad about the coverage. I'm just mad about the fact that the ultimate result was their guys beat our guys in a situation where we were supremely favored to win as far as odds go. And that really bugs me because I can't get around it.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason. So you look at now the updated measurements and DVOA and stuff like that coming out, and Vikings are in those measurements above league average. They're 1-14, but they're above league average and some of that stuff. And goes when you have a 1-point loss to Tennessee, who is undefeated as of now, and you have a 1-point loss to Seattle, who is also undefeated. The Vikings are 1-4, and it's kind of that debate of, well, they're not good. They're not ready to beat good teams, or are they good enough, and are they better than their record? And it's just a couple of plays here or there, and Vikings are looking at a 3-2 record right now.
Right.
So
Eric,
it's
true.
just it is, and so it's a little bit weird as a fan right now because you don't really know how to feel about this team because I don't want to play the optimism card too much. I don't like doing that. I don't like getting my hopes up with this franchise because that never works out.
True.
But the schedule gets easier moving forward. You got Atlanta. You have opportunities against divisional opponents. And then you have home games against, like the likes of Carolina, Jacksonville, Dallas, moving forward later in the season. It's not, with the 7 playoff seeds, it's not out of the realm of possibilities yet, given that this team is showing signs of competitiveness against really good teams.
Right.
But it's just, now it's a maturity thing to me, especially with the defense, as we saw in the Seattle game. And then you could also mention like Holton Hill's mistake against Tennessee where he catches that pass and then the game's over there. Right. This team is not quite ready to beat those good teams, and it's already cost 2 wins that, I would say the Vikings outplayed Tennessee most of that game, and they outplayed Seattle most of the game Sunday night. So they're right there, and I'm honestly like, the win-loss record sucks, but I'm impressed very much the last 3 games with how Zimmer's coached them and how they've progressed after those ugly, ugly first 2 games.
I would agree with that. I do think that they show signs of being a more competitive team than the one that I was complaining about just a month ago. I still am ready to throw in the towel on the season as a result of this game because ultimately,
I get that 1-4 is not promising.
Exactly. So despite the fact they played super well, it's just the numbers for me at this point, right? You've only got 11 games left. Chances say the Vikings aren't making the postseason. So for that reason, I'm still out. Now, as far as being optimistic about this organization moving forward and how well they can compete, the Vikings kind of have a bit of an issue here because they're bad at being good and they're bad at being bad because this team is a quality team that's going to beat a lot of bad, like truly bad teams and probably is going to upset a couple of good teams. They almost just did it against Seattle. They almost did it against Tennessee, like you said. They could easily do this again against Green Bay. I could totally see this Vikings team going in and beating Green Bay. Still, despite the fact that they're 1-4, despite all the issues that are still present, I can totally see, it's just one play, like you said. It's like Adam Thielen said. If DK Metcalf just drops that ball, it doesn't even have to be deflected by a defender. If he just drops it, Vikings are 2-3. We're really, really excited. We're talking about going into Atlanta and then a bye, potentially being 3-3 and coming all the way back from a shitty start. But that's not what happened. And as a result, we just have to look at the objective numbers say the Vikings are screwed right now. But
Yeah.
they're probably still going to find a way to win some football games. So it's like we're back to that question that we asked last week. Like, yeah, I'm never going to root for the Vikings to lose, but when they end the season at what, probably 6-10, I'm going to be pissed that they weren't 3-13 because I know they have the potential to be that bad, but I also know they have the potential to be a 9-17. So it's a really weird spot to be in. And as a fan, I'm going to say, hey, keep trying to win, but I'm still going to be mad at 6-10 at the end of the year because it's just not good enough to be bad.
It's weird.
And it's not good enough to be good either.
It's weird. And the part of it, we talked about this before, but like it just sucks that that it's still the team is still limited even with like the contract situation. They paid Cousins and they paid Cook, which is not looking awesome right now because Madison was in there running way more efficient than Cook was in that Seattle game. But that's
also,
another
Cook's hurt,
issue.
by the way. So all the
And
medical flags that we brought up over the reasons why not to sign him to a long-term deal. Here we are again. We're not even talking about that today, but that's a real thing now, by the way. So continue.
Yeah. So it's just, and I don't know what to feel because like there's so many different possibilities here. That like the crowd of tank for Trevor and like fold the season. I'll never subscribe to that, but it just seems like this team's too good for that. And then you look at the playoff situation and. Unless something crazy happens, a crazy win streak, Mike Tyson 2005, they make a run at it with Brad Johnson in there. Like they're, that doesn't seem like a realistic possibility either because of those two really hard losses to Tennessee and Seattle where they probably should have won at least one of those. So I don't know. I really don't know what to feel right now. It's kind of weird. Like if they lose to Atlanta, then we can kind of start maybe thinking more about the tank for Trevor situation.
That's the problem is that they're probably not going to lose to Atlanta because they're
of course not. They should not.
They're even worse at being good than the Vikings are.
They're bad at being bad too. Well, I shouldn't say that. They're good at being bad. They're bad at being good. Yeah. And also Mike Zimmer just owns Matt Ryan, so I can't see a scenario where that suddenly changes. But we'll talk about that in the next show. But I don't know. I this has kind of gone all over the place lately. Last few minutes here, I'm just trying to collect my thoughts on where I feel about this, like what I feel about this team right now, because it's
tough to organize your thoughts. Because I understand what you're saying. Because you look at the performance yesterday. I mean, with the exception of that third quarter, Kirk Cousins was aces, right? So somewhere between a C and a B. Madison was really good. Cook was very solid before he went out with an injury. Thielen outstanding once again. Irv Smith finally showed up. A couple of huge catches too. Jefferson and B.C. Johnson and Chad Beebe all didn't play all that much, but important catches.
James Lynch got a sack.
Yeah.
James Lynch.
Right.
Unique was in there in the pass rush as well. Like
Eric Wilson had the best game of his entire career.
Eric Wilson was awesome. Yeah. He was awesome. And
Fetty got his sack too. And it was the most anticlimactic sack of all time, by the way, for Odenigbo, but he got one nonetheless.
Hey, he got it. It was a long time coming. And so there's positives there to take away.
Right.
It seems like this team. Here's the takeaway. This team needed the preseason more than any team in the NFL.
Yes.
They get a preseason. 1-4 is not the record, right? And I'm not trying to make an excuse for this team because everybody's dealing with that right now, right? Like no team got a preseason. Everybody was trying to get acclimated, prior to week 1 in regular season where the game counts. But so many rookies, so much inexperience on the defensive side. Clearly, that has changed since week 2. Like it looked like the 2-week preseason would have been perfect for this team.
Yeah.
And like I thought I saw today the Vikings since week 3, since that Tennessee game, allowing less than 20% conversion rate on third down, which is easily best in the NFL. Which is flashes of Mike Zimmer's best defense. I think a few years ago. It's like it's there. It's not amounting to wins, which is about inexperience and which is part of it's luck too. Like part of it's just luck. Like I don't know if it's how much luck it is that all of Kirk's mistakes just happen to be just absolutely untimely and the worst catastrophic result ever, or like Holton Hill dropping that interception against the Titans, or there's just things that seem to happen, and I don't know. I'm trying to organize my thoughts here and it's not working, but 1-4 is weird right now.
I do think so. Like the bad luck thing is like I'm not a big believer in luck just in general. I just believe that if you work hard enough at something, eventually you tend to see results. The Vikings are the one thing in my life where I start to believe in luck a little bit more. Because like you said, like Holton Hill has prepared all his life to make that interception. And he's got solid hands for a defensive back. He should have made that catch. And he didn't. It's just weird, right? And like when you look at Russell Wilson staring down 94 yards on Sunday, it's just weird that it's always the Vikings allowing that issue to happen. I mean, as soon as Wilson got the ball, most of us were thinking this is going to end in disaster, and we think that because we have learned, we're conditioned to think that way because of everything that has gone wrong in this franchise since before I was alive. It's ridiculous.
It's just, it's so weird because I'm pleasantly surprised with the offense for sure through 5 games, and especially the last 3 games. I'm surprised pleasantly with the defense. I am,
but you can't be happy about that because of where we are record-wise.
Yeah, so I'm trying. Like I feel positive about that, and I have a weird confidence about this team moving forward. But 1-4 does not inspire that at all. So
2-3 is literally a different world, and that's why this loss hurts so much. Is because 2-3 with the win over the Seahawks, heading to Atlanta with the bye the ensuing week. That is best case scenario after the 0-2 start for the Vikings.
Well, and you look around the NFC. Look around the NFC. NFC East. I think the Vikings are better than all 4 of those teams.
Agreed.
Look at the NFC West. Arizona's kind of faltering. The Niners look bad now. Jimmy G's not even a starter-worthy quarterback anymore. Maybe Kirk's heading there next year. And then outside, I mean, the other teams, NFC North, the Bears are a fraudulent 4-1. Lions are bad. You look at the NFC South, the Saints aren't good anymore. Oh, they're scraping by winning at home now. Panthers are the best team maybe in that division right now.
That's my point. But honestly, everything you're saying right now makes this loss hurt that much more because if you're 2-3, you're right in the thick of it. Not necessarily for the division, but you're right in the middle of what's going on in the NFC right now. You've got a huge win over Seattle, which down the road could become a very important victory. But you blow it. It's so Vikings that had to happen, and because you just look at the difference here. If we literally flip the score, and we're on cloud 9, we're talking about this team moving to 3-3, heading into a bye, and then getting to play the Packers again with a rejuvenated team, a team that looks like it's had a preseason at this point. Because I completely agree with your take on the preseason. This team did not come out firing on all cylinders, and yet the last 3 weeks they look like a competitive team who can challenge anyone. And that's why I say this team is good enough to compete right now, but it's not good enough to win apparently. We're going to get a competitive matchup every single week this season probably.
There's going to be a win. It might be the Green Bay game. I don't know. There's going to be a win this season where they shouldn't win that game. It could have been Seattle, but they're going to get another one where it's going to be okay, this team actually did, have that potential to be a serious playoff contender this year. And it's going to give credence to Zimmer and Spielman and Cousins, and it's going to feed into that, okay, this is actually the regime that the Vikings need. Whether you agree with that or not, it's irrelevant because this is the team, this is the trio for the Vikings for the next 3 years. And it's going to take something catastrophic for Zimmer to be gone. So
it's always we'll figure it out next time. But in my experience as a Vikings fan, next time is just as big of a disaster as the first time. So, this
is a wild show, man. I am all over the place. I don't know how to. Yeah, I just don't know how to feel about it or digest it. I don't get it.
Reposition this game. Put this game week 1, and the Vikings are 0-1, coming off a 26-27 loss to the Seahawks. And yes, I understand that the first 4 weeks add credence to how good Seattle is. But if this happens week 1, you're probably feeling pretty good about the Vikings season. I mean, they looked competitive at every single level. It's just that you can literally point to 4 mistakes in this game: the Kirk interception, the Kirk fumble, the Dantzler miss flub down the left sideline, and the final play of the game where Metcalf scored. You could point to 4 plays that really determined the result. 5, I guess, because I didn't include the 4th and 2 rush attempt. 5 plays you can point to that truly determined the outcome of this game. And if any one of those goes a different way, the Vikings win. Do you understand how ridiculous these odds are? The Vikings found a way to lose. I've got a problem with that, and it's
Twice. They twice did because they were. If you look at like the win probability chart that you see on Twitter all the time after a game like that, Vikings were at like 80-something% after halftime.
Yep.
Quickly went the other way to Seattle after that. It seemed like Kirk had like a Buffalo 2018 episode there where just could not get a normal play to work in his favor. It was a turnover, a sack, an interception over and over. Somehow the Vikings battled back from that, which you got to give Kirk credit for. Back-to-back touchdown drives to retake the lead there. And at that point, Vikings are huge favorites to get the ball back. They're down in the red zone. To lose that game essentially twice the way they did. They're not ready to win, but there's so many positives on both sides that it's like, I don't know. I seriously don't know what to think. And a win against the Falcons is not going to change that either because it's the Falcons. So that's my I guess final note. I have no idea. I do not know. Because anything's on the table at this point. This team could not win a game the rest of the season. I wouldn't be that surprised. If they rattled off 5-6 wins in a row, that wouldn't terribly surprise me either.
So I'll close out with this too, because I agree that this team is going to be competitive every single week. And they're going to – I said this earlier today talking to one of my buddies. I was just saying that, like, they're good enough to beat the bad teams. So they're going to get 2 or 3 more wins. And then accidentally beat a couple good teams because they are good enough at most like this team is like 80% complete with the biggest issues being the cornerbacks, which is huge in a passing league, and the quarterback who just steps on his own. Like I don't even know what he's doing.
It's like 3 plays a game. He's going to look awesome for 60 plays in the game.
And it's not even like there's no rational explanation for him either. So like I don't even know how you fix Cousins because like you said, he's so good for like 25 of the 28 throws that he makes. But those 3 throws always really, really suck. Or 3 decisions, whatever you'd want us to be. They're really
just
suck.
Dramatically costing the team. Like, if you want to talk big nerd vocabulary here, expected points or, win probability. Like, his mistakes cost so much of that for the Vikings routinely, the mistakes he makes. And it's never just like, how like, these quarterbacks do arm punts, right? Where they throw it 50 yards, it's picked off, and it's essentially a punt. He can never just do that. It's got to be returned for a touchdown, or it's got to be a fumble in his own territory, or it's got to be like KJ Wright, where he picks it off, takes it to the 10-yard line. Yeah. It's always something like that.
It's always something with Kirk. And this isn't even a Kirk game. This is a Cameron Dantzler game. But it's always something with Kirk.
It was dynamite besides those plays. Throwing darts. Hitting Irv Smith over the middle. Like, I don't know. I still have no idea. I won't have any idea for a while about this team. I won't.
This is definitely a hard one to digest, and I implore all of you listening to share your thoughts with us because obviously neither of us know what to think at this point. I mean, objectively, you can look at the record and be like, oh, the Vikings are screwed. But if you watch these last 3 games, Drew's right. There's reason to be excited about development for guys like Jefferson, who was non-existent.
They're like 4 plays from being 3-2.
Right.
That's why it's weird because they're good, but they're not. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. So please share your thoughts with us. We're definitely open to other opinions on this, rational or irrational. I love to hear both. Please feel free to share those with us on the Daily Norseman. And then make sure to check out the rest of the Climbing in the Pocket Network as well. You can find all those podcasts on the Daily Norseman or on climbingthepocketnetwork.com. As for this show, you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, and anywhere else where you find your podcasts. And you can also watch Drew and I talk if you prefer to use that format on YouTube. So thanks as always for listening, and we will be back later on this week to discuss the Atlanta Falcons. So thanks, folks.